Welcome to another week of the longevity program, and I'm coming to you from Dubai, from the Dubai airport, traveling to Germany in another actually a little bit more, another 8.5 hours. I'll be in Germany. I've got a meeting over there, and then Switzerland as a whistle-stop tour very quickly to see some bits and pieces, and then back into Australia. So the longevity program coming to you from Dubai. Just thought as I'm going through this travel that it would be a good chance for me to give you some travel tips from a longevity point of view, because remember I talked about how can we bring longevity and the lowest impact possible on, in this case, travel on your body. So how can we bring longevity into this crazy busy world that we're living in? And for me, this trip, as I said, I'm over to Europe and back within 1 week. So that's going to put a fair amount of strain on my body if I'm not careful. And if you look at it, I'm traveling for about 27 hours door to door. And that's a fairly long trip. That's over a day, obviously. And there's a lot that can go right in a trip like this. It's super fun, super exciting, lots of really great gains to be had from a work point of view. And at the same time, if I'm not careful, it can also knock my longevity around. As I was flying, I made use of my time, and I wrote down 10 key thoughts for myself as to how I would go about this and how I would get the best chances of longevity out of my trip. And I'm going to share those with you today. So I've noted them down on a little pad, and let's hit it. So the first one is I want to make sure that whenever I travel, I always set my intentions before I travel. And what does that mean? It means that if I don't set my intentions, if I don't think about how I'm going to travel, what I want to get out of the travel, and what I want to get out of the way that I interact in that travel. And I'll talk about some of the key points of interaction or things that you might want to do or might not want to do in my case to make sure my longevity remains tip-top. If I don't set those intentions, I'm basically going to be going with the flow. And I've heard it beautifully described by one thought leader where they said, look, if you don't set intentions, if you don't absolutely work out what it is you want to achieve, it's kind of like going down a river in a canoe without a paddle. You're just basically going to go wherever the river takes you. Now, I don't want that for myself, so I want to set intentions before I travel so that when people say, would you, for example, like alcohol, I say, no thanks. Happy for other people to have it, not a problem whatsoever, but not for me. And that goes on to the second point, which is, for me, I want to ignore alcohol. Now, I've seen the longevity program that I'm not having alcohol anyway. Alcohol, in my opinion, and flying really doesn't and shouldn't mix, because you're putting your body through a whole lot of stress, and to add what is effectively a poison at altitude, and in some cases people really enjoy over the top, then that can really harm your body. Now, if you set your intention and you say to yourself, I want to party hard and I'm going to have some alcohol, knock yourself out, go for it. But that's not something that I want for myself, and therefore I want to ignore alcohol. That's point number 2. Point number 3 is when I jump on that plane, I immediately reset to the destination that I'm going to. So I know, for example, it's early morning in Dusseldorf right now, and that's my end destination. So as far as I possibly can, I try to sleep, eat, and work in both my mind as well as in what I'm physically doing to that new destination. And I find that really helps when you arrive to hit the ground running, and I find that super helpful. The fourth one, and linked, if you go back to point number 2, avoid alcohol, point number 4 would be hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. But hydrate with stuff that's really going to help you out, and that is a simple thing called water. It's so incredibly important, and I know when you watch those flying videos that they start off with and they always say hydrate, well, it's super important. They don't say it just for the fun of it. It will really help you, so make sure you hydrate. That's point number 4. Point number 5 for me is go easy on the food. Now, you're going to be offered all sorts of food when you're traveling, and I know that I get offered, as everyone else does, plenty of food, and it's really tempting, if you're a bit bored, to just eat whatever is put in front of you. And I would suggest that's not in my best interest. I want to make sure that I'm eating something that, as far as it can be, is nutritious for me. So and on airline food for a vegan, there's not a lot of options. So sometimes I bring my own snacks as well, just to make sure that I'm eating in the way that I want to be eating. So just watching out for that food, watching out, if you're in a lounge, if you're lucky enough to be in a lounge, to not just go ballistic on the food that's available, because there is a smorgasbord available if you want it. It will, or your body will thank you later when you get to your destination and you're not feeling completely weighed down by the masses of food that you've eaten. So that's point number 5. Point number 6, and this is a bit of a first world point, or first world problem if you can't get it, but if you possibly can get it, get yourself a flatbed. Business class tickets, which I know are not available for everyone, but if you're lucky enough to have a work situation which will allow you to travel business class, get that flatbed, because I tell you, that makes a massive difference for me in my ability to sleep. And if you can sleep, then you hit the ground running when you get to your next destination, and you'll be far less jet lagged, far less impacted by the travel that you're going on. So if you can possibly get it, and I know in so many cases that's not possible or not an option, but if you can get it, getting a flatbed will make the world of difference. I know it makes the world of difference for me. So point number 7, and they say this in the flight in-flight videos as well, and once again, they're not just making it up. Stretch and move. Now this might mean that you need to annoy your neighbour and say, I'm sorry, I'm just going to get up and walk up and down the aisles a little bit. I find stretching and moving is so incredibly important. And if I'm heading up to the bathroom, for example, just stand in that little alcove area there. The hosties don't mind at all. In fact, sometimes it's really lovely to be able to have a good old chat with the hosties and talk about what's going on. But at the same time, I'm there, I'm stretching, I'm sort of moving left and right, and doing some quad stretches and a couple of squats. People might look at you a bit funny, but you're going to feel much better for it. I know I feel heaps better for it. So stretching as you're traveling, that's another one that I really stay close to. So that would be my point number 7. Point number 8, I would suggest for me, is using the flight time wisely. And that's a mixture of both traveling and doing some work. Now, whether that's work on a passion project, such as the longevity program, whether that's doing work on work that you might be doing if you're traveling for work. So I've been reading and going through a number of emails and key submissions that I need to review, and then throwing in just that little bit of downtime as well, because it is a long trip and you wouldn't be working the whole time either. And I know that I wouldn't be working for 27 hours straight. So watching a movie or two, I find, is a really great way to wind down, and also taking some time to do some breathing. I'm a captive audience of myself, so an ability to breathe and really get into that is fantastic as well. So that is point number 8. Point number 9, and this one is super important for me: exercise on arrival. Now, my go-to exercise when I'm traveling, and it'd be a little bit difficult in Dusseldorf at the moment because it ranges between 0 and 6 degrees, but I'm still going to do this. So exercise on arrival, and my go-to is running. Now, I find this is awesome for 2 reasons, or a couple of reasons. And by the way, I'm not talking about I'm going out for a marathon or a really hard 10K effort. I'm talking about just going for a nice gentle jog when I arrive, and I get to check out the town. I get to check out the new digs, see what's going on in this new part of the world that I've visited. And there's no better way to do that than just hit the pavement. And then secondly, it also gets me ready for hitting that pillow later that night, a little bit more physically exhausted, and I find that really, really helps me. So if it's too cold and I can't do that, I'll just go and do a quick workout in the gym. Whatever it is, exercising on arrival is really beneficial for me, and I find that really works. And then my final and 10th tip for myself, and what I want to make sure I always do, is avoid sleeping if I arrive. So say, for example, I'm arriving about midday in Dusseldorf, having done all of that travel, and I don't want to go to sleep until such time as it is about sort of 8 or 9 o'clock. Now, I've got a work dinner at 7 p.m. On that Sunday night, so I won't have a lot of choice in that, but it might be tempting to have a little sleep before I go to that dinner, but I'm not going to do that. I'll go for a run instead, and then if I really, really need to, I'll have what I call a power nap. So I set my timer for 35 minutes, and I'll do a 35-minute nap and then get into it. So that's the only way that I'll sleep. I definitely don't want to go put my head down for an hour or a couple of hours, because that really just hurts my ability to sleep later on in that night. and then that just sets off my ability to recover from jet lag in the longer term. There you have it. They're my 10 longevity travel tips for myself. You may find some of them interesting, you may find none of them interesting, but they certainly are the ones that work for me, and they're what I'm working to right now as I travel, as I say, coming to you from Dubai on my way to Dusseldorf. And remember, all of this for me is about that one key thing, and that is living long, living strong. Until next time.